Hello guys, thanks for joining. We'll just get started in about 30 seconds. I know we are all joining from different parts of the world. Some people from North America, from Africa, from Europe, from Asia. So I know it's different time zones. Some of you guys are prepping for dinner. Some of you guys just woke up. So thanks for making the time. And today's session, basically, we got myself, Veeshesh Sunassy, Hannah Fenwick, and Mattia Baldoni from the Nuclear for Climate team. Today's session is an open session. It's basically the time for you to ask us any questions about Nuclear for Climate, what the delivery role entails, and what is the sort of expectation. And I know some of you guys already kind of give us a feel of what sort of questions you want to ask us, so we'll be covering that as well. Given it's 10:05 there, I'm just going to get started. So basically, the plan today is I'm going to give an overview of what's Nuclear for Climate, what did we achieve at COP27, because that will give you a good feel about what goes on at COP. And then Hannah will touch on the delivery team roles, tying that back to what happens at COP and what happened pre-COP, and then we'll open it for question and answer. So that's great. Two ways you could ask question. Again, it's an informal session, so either you could raise your hand and then unmute yourself and then ask the question, or there's a the chat option. Push your question there, and then Mattia will be reading that. I already see your hand raised. Julieta, you were just trying to test it. Perfect. Awesome. So we'll get to introduction first. You want to know who's speaking to you guys. So I'll let Hannah introduce herself first, and then I'll introduce myself.
Thanks, Veeshesh. Hello, everybody. My name's Hannah Fenwick. I'm from Scotland in the UK. I'm from Glasgow, and Glasgow was the proud host of COP26 in 2021. And I had the honour and the privilege of volunteering for Nuclear for Climate at COP26. And when I got there at week 2 and seen all of the amazing work done by Nuclear for Climate, I said, I want to make this happen next year. I want to be involved. So last year, I was co-leader of the delivery team for Nuclear for Climate and worked alongside Veeshesh and many others in an international team to pull together the COP27 agenda and the year-long campaign on Nuclear for Climate and nuclear advocacy. And both Veeshesh and I will be leading on the team this year as well. Again, so really excited, loved it so much. I'm doing it 3 years in a row now. And outside of Nuclear for Climate, I work in contracts and commercial, and I work for the National Nuclear Laboratory, where I've worked for the last 7 years. That is also in the UK. So I'll pass over to Veeshesh to tell you a bit more about him.
Thanks, Hannah. So Veeshesh again. I'm based in Canada, Toronto. Oh, it's cold here, -20. But anyways, last year was the first COP I was involved, and I was in Sharm el Sheikh. Actually, I started with Nuclear for Climate as a sponsorship lead. So this is where we try to get external companies to try and support our message and support us financially so that we can execute the 2-week agenda we had at COP. And it was probably one of the best experience I had, and that's why I said I want to keep getting involved. So that's going to be my second COP involvement with Nuclear for Climate. And kind of people ask me, what's the best thing you get to do at COP? For me, I there's lots of interesting things, but the best thing is like meeting the people again in person with who you worked for like 6-7 months. So that was kind of my highlights last year, and that's why we want to share the exciting stuff that happens at COP, and then just for you to get a feel about what it's involved. So with that, I'm gonna share my screen, and then you'll get to see some nice slides. Okay. Okay. First of all, Nuclear for Climate and COP. I won't touch a lot on COP. I hope most of you know what is COP, but briefly, COP is basically the United Nations Climate Change Conference. This is where the leaders, climate activists, policymakers meet every year to discuss the next steps about climate change. Happens every year. Last COP27 was in Sharm el Sheikh. So this COP, it's going to be in the United Arab Emirates and Dubai from November 30th to December 12th. The premise why we're setting the meeting is because Nuclear for Climate, we are recruiting for delivery team position to join our team, and what the role will be is like you will help the team develop the 2-week agenda for COP. So first of all, what's Nuclear for Climate? Nuclear for Climate, it's basically it's a grassroots initiative of more than 150 associations, networks, societies from all around the world. We got networks from Argentina, Brazil, Canada, US, Poland, different parts of Africa, Japan, and as part of these association networks, we have the young generation in nuclear groups, we have the women in nuclear groups, and different other societies. And our main goal again is to go to COP, short for Conference and Parties, and this is where we educate policymakers and the public about nuclear, and not just the energy, but all the benefits that nuclear technology brings to the society and how it helps fight climate change. So if you go back, you will see our booth here. You don't see the full thing. Our key message is basically we say clean energy for all. You will see that you have a solar panel, the nuclear sign, and also the wind turbine. Another of our message is together is better. And perhaps one of the most important message for us is net zero needs nuclear. So these are our key messages we share at COP. And how do we do that? By sending volunteers to COP. So the first time the Nuclear for Climate had physical presence at COP was in 2015 for COP21. This is actually where the Paris Agreement, which most of you I'm sure know about, came. For that COP, we had about 10 volunteers. COP27, we had 98 volunteers that we were able to send. And what these 98 volunteers achieve as a lot, as it was amazing. So basically, again, speaking about spreading our message, a key way we do that is we do events. And again, that's where the public can come and learn about the different things that's happening in the nuclear industry. So for example, we had people kind of come and ask us about nuclear and about what about safety? What about the cost? What about the energy security piece? And this is where it was for us. We set up 2 sessions where at COP, the public came and asked us any questions they wanted. Again, a key value of ours, we value diversity. So basically, we had a panel where female leaders came in and basically discussed all the key roles female is playing in the nuclear space. Another event we had, again, we are the grassroots initiative, so lots of young professionals in the group. We had a great panel session with the IEA Director General, Rafael Grossi. Usually he asks us the question. This time, we asked him the question. This time he asked a panel of 4 young delegates the question. So I was part of it. That was pretty exciting. And then an important one was a United Nations side event itself, where we discussed can we ensure development without the use of fossil fuel. Where again, the non-nuclear audience could come and learn what the nuclear space has. So what we have in common for these events? You'll see a lot of smiles in our events. So we do it in a fun, exciting way. You will see this one. The one on the top right was an exciting one. This is an event we had at the Child and Youth Pavilion. So basically, that was the first time at COP they had a physical presence, and we went to their space and kind of did a speed networking session where we sent our delegates, and then they came and asked us question, and we would rotate every 3 minutes. That one was about the female panel. This one, the one on the bottom left, that was the UN side event, and this one, it was the picture of our booth, and you could see clean energy for all. So the other thing, again, going back to educating policymakers and the public, is COP 30,000 delegates. There was more than 120 head of states who physically were present in Sharm el-Sheikh. So it's the time for us to engage with them, not just for picture op, but to ask them, hey, what are you guys doing in your country? What are you guys doing in your region? And I'll just mention three. We met lots of people, and just to see the level of interaction in terms of head of state, Hannah there had the Scottish flag, and she was able to bump with the Scottish First Minister, so the Scottish Prime Minister Nicola Sturgeon, and she had the opportunity to ask her, what are you doing about new nuclear? What's the Scotland plan in terms of adding nuclear as part of the electricity mix? Uh, Another layer of level we were able to engage with is UN ambassadors, so United Nations ambassadors, and one key one we met was the United Nations ambassador to Kenya, and basically he was actually the president of the UN Security Council 2 years ago, and he came and asked us, hey, there's these issues that's happening in Ukraine with Russia taking over the Zaporizhzhia plant in Ukraine. What are you guys doing? He had a conversation with us for about 30-45 minutes, and then at the end he said, you guys are really passionate about what you do, so you guys really changed my mind. I really need to go back to the Security Council and fight that again. He wants Kenya to add nuclear as part of their energy mix. And a third layer is a climate activist that came from Cote d'Ivoire, and he very influential in his community. And he came, he didn't know too much about nuclear, spoke to us, and then he said that, wow, you guys do a lot of great things. So he wants to learn more about it. So we connected him with the African Young Generation and Nuclear Network, and he was able to work with them and bring that back to the community. Again, common things you see there is a lot of smile, because let me tell you, it's very exciting, very engaging to be there at COP, the level of impact and the level of interaction you're able to make. Now, okay, grassroots initiative. So we are the youth wing kind of for nuclear there. So we find creative ways, fun ways to engage with the public. It's not just, hey, meetings or events. So in terms of creativity, what we do, for example, to attract attention, we would have flash mobs. So basically in the middle of the street, we would just have a rapper. His name was Baba Brinkman. He just came and rap, and we were all dancing, doing push-ups, lunges, doing moves in front of people, and that was close to the media zone. So the media, actually, you would see on the top right there, at top left there, is the media came, filmed us, and that made the front page of the Guardian, actually, with our picture. We also have polar bears. We have one polar bear and one brown bear, so probably a grizzly bear then. And we would just go for walks. For example, you would see the polar bear just with sign, together is better, fight climate change, not nuclear. So this is kind of a easy way to reach out to people without having the sort of, discussion that if you wouldn't have those types of interaction. So that was the brown bear. So that's Bella the bear, quite famous. Everyone loved and wanted a picture with it, including the IEA Director General, including the United Nations Secretary of Energy. Everyone wanted a picture with it. Another thing we did, which was cool, we had a virtual reality Google of a nuclear power plant in Czech Republic. So that gave opportunities for people who've never seen the inside of a nuclear reactor to kind of see it and just like move here and there. So that was pretty exciting. And the last thing we did is like we had our wall, which we asked people to sign from different parts of the world. So I think we had more than 40, 50 countries who came and sign it, just express support with nuclear. So that's the exciting piece. And lastly, media. There's lots of media there, so it's our chance to share our voice, share our passion, share our message to people who can't be at COP through the media. And we basically, our delegates spoke to France 24, BBC, New York Times, Forbes, Reuters, and several other journals and journalists from different parts of the world. So this is the sort of impact we have as well. And you could see some of the news channel in terms of the headlines. Reuters saying nuclear vying for a bigger role in decarbonizing the planet. Polish newspaper, a Czech Republic newspaper. That one is the Guardian. You could see the beer. You could see some of us doing push-ups. Some of us are trying to cheat. Yeah, not doing the full push-ups, but yeah. That's basically the story about what we do at COP. So using that, now Hannah will try and explain to you, okay, how do we come up with a 2-week agenda, which the delivery team is key to. So I'll pass that over to Hannah now.
Yeah, thanks, Veeshesh. So when I joined for COP26, I got to get involved in all of that fun. But what I realised was there must have been an awful lot of effort put in to make that happen. And I wanted to be involved and wanted to make it happen. So Veeshesh and I and many others joined the delivery team last year, which kicked off in March, and worked right all the way through from March until November, planning everything that you've seen happen. That's securing the booth, securing funding, and then organising 98 volunteers from all over the world to arrive in Egypt and to spread the good word about nuclear advocacy and how nuclear is part of the solution alongside renewables to decarbonise and as a solution against climate change, to mitigate climate change. So whilst it was quite daunting at the start, 9 months before COP, I'm on video calls with people from all over the world, I realised really quickly I was working with an absolutely amazing international team. I'd never worked with such a widespread team across the world, with amazing experience in all different sectors, in academia and research and in commercial nuclear operations across the world, with different experience from what I had. So it was really great to learn from them. And fortunately, I made really great friends. So both at COP26 and COP27, who I believe will be lifelong friends. And we've got some great memories together already and many more great memories to make. The network's been fantastic that we've created, and actually several opportunities have followed being part of the delivery team that I found to be really enhancing for my career, and many other individuals from previous delivery teams have found this as well. So this is definitely something that, while it's good to do for everybody, it's good to do for the nuclear industry, it's good to do for the climate, it's also really good to do for yourself. It's a really great opportunity for young people, and it's a way to really make a difference. So meeting Nicola Sturgeon, who the First Minister of Scotland, I never thought I would get to meet her. She's one of my icons, one of my heroes, and I finally got to meet her, bumping into her at COP, and it is a very unique opportunity at COP. You do generally just walk past world leaders, presidents of countries, prime ministers, and governors and officials from all over the world. That level of exposure is very difficult to get anywhere else, especially on that scale. And not only did we get to meet these high-level people that I wouldn't usually get to meet day to day, but we got to have conversations with them that we think will really help change the narrative on nuclear and will change policy and decision making. So making that happen takes a lot of effort. And the volunteers over 9 months had a communications plan where we communicated about our message all throughout those 9 months. And then we planned the 2-week agenda. So every one of those events that was listed was planned in advance. Speakers were engaged with, topics were developed with collaboration meetings to say what do we want to have and who do we want to speak. And we need a great team this year to do the same again. So that's the kind of spiel of what it is. And what I'd like to do before we open up to questions, I do see one hand up. Everybody should have seen our application page, our application Google sheet, and also there's an information sheet. And what I'll do is just share that really briefly to go through what the structure should look like of the team. Let me share my screen with you.
And as Hannah's doing that, feel free to start posting question in the chat as well, which we'll take at the end, or just as Adam is doing, just raise your hands.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about, you're already here on this call, so we'll not go through that. We've explained who's the delivery team and who's Nuclear for Climate. But COP will happen this year in the United Arab Emirates in the city of Dubai, at Expo City in Dubai. And this will be between the 30th of November and the 12th of December this year. And this is over 2 weeks. Usually COP has ran from Monday to Saturday, then Monday to Friday. It's different this year, it's running from Thursday to Thursday week. So generally for COP, there is week 1 and week 2, and we have to plan an agenda for both weeks. And that's when it is, so 30th of November to the 12th of December. So what we're talking about today is delivery team roles, and the delivery team would kick off in March and would be dedicated to providing support until around January 24. And the spillover beyond the 12th of December is the wrap up after COP, and then starting to do the recruitment for the next delivery team that will kick off in March in 2024. So what would you get to do if you were to apply for a delivery team role and you were successful? You get to be part of that planning and preparing and collaborating to create all of that amazing stuff that happens at COP. We also want to branch out to also attend COI. COI is the Conference of Youth, and it takes part 1 week before COP. So this is something that's quite new this year, and we would like to have youth leading that within the delivery team. In terms of before the 2-week agenda, what else do? We have a Net Zero Needs Nuclear advocacy campaign that will run throughout the year. We have a website, we have social media pages, and we have a really large network to keep in touch with, to reach out for their expertise, their knowledge, but also to reach out and ask for speakers for our events and to collaborate with people who will be going to COP as well, such as the IAEA, who is the International Atomic Energy Agency, and also the World Nuclear Association, European Nuclear Society, and many others. There are some other opportunities. So if you were wanting to be part of the delivery team, but there wasn't a role for you this year, there will need to be more than just the delivery team attending COP. The delivery team last year was around 12 people, but 98 delegates went to COP. So we will recruit for people to attend COP. Priority for the attendance at COP will be given to those who are in the delivery team in terms of all of the hard work and effort they put in to prepare and plan. But we'll also this year have a new group called the Task Force. This will be shorter term volunteering opportunities in the months before we go out to COP in December. So we'll launch this around about summer. And when I say summer, I mean Northern Hemisphere summer. So around June or July, we'll reach out for small tasks that need some support. So the delivery team chairs are Veeshesh and I, and we've introduced ourselves, but we've got lots of roles available where we'll have different leads. And what we see, why we have so many leads, is we want to create a really flat hierarchy, so a lack of hierarchy really, and a flat structure, which means the communication lead will work with their team and they will steer their ship, which is the communication ship. They're the captain and they're responsible, accountable, and also they have the ability to, they create their strategy, they get to use their creative juices and their creative ideas from their team, and they get to run with it. The same for the events and activities lead. They will be responsible for strategizing and implementing. Same with the youth lead for attending COI and host country coordinator role, delegation lead, and donation liaison lead. And whilst these are single lead roles, they'll all be supported by team members. So I'll jump down to the very bottom where we have a draft example of the structure. So Nuclear for Climate leads, we have two people who support us really heavily, Emilia and Jadwiga. They're the Nuclear for Climate leads. And Veeshesh and I, as the co-chairs, will engage with them regularly. And then we have all of the leads. So the comms leads, event and activity leads, youth lead, host country coordinator, donation liaison lead, and delegation lead. But there are also lots and lots of roles that we need lots of implementers to put the strategy into action and to create the agenda and to push the agenda forward. So there's lots of roles, and two roles that fall outside of having a lead, one being a project manager or someone with project management expertise, and also someone who's a researcher who will peer check all of the data that we use in our advocacy and peer check our position paper, which we write every year. This would be great for an academic or someone with a technical background who is really into that kind of thing. So this is our draft, because this will change depending on how many people we get interested and what skills they have, and then the volume of work that we do and how that will change throughout the year. So that's a rough indication of the roles. And I do hope that you have had a chance to have a look at these, this document, which has all of these descriptions of the roles. And what I'll do now, rather than read this out loud, which wouldn't be very exciting, is I'll open up for questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. And both Veeshesh and I can take your questions on.
And just before we answer the question, I know there's a couple posted already. In terms of the timeline, Feb 15th is when the application will end, and what will happen is from Feb 15th to Feb 28th, the recruitment team for Nuclear for Climate will be having just a video call with some selected candidate, again, just to have a conversation about what interested them, etc. And then by Feb 28th, that's the target when we expect to kind of nominate, in a way, the delivery team and appoint the delivery team. And the first kickoff meeting for the delivery team will be on March 6th. So that's in terms of timeline. And just something for me, and again, an advice for you, I always ask myself this question before applying or before deciding if I want to do a role or not. So like the 2-3 question I've asked myself: what's in there for me? What sort of skill set can I bring to the team? What sort of values can I bring to the team? The second question I ask, which I think is very important, and that drives me, and sometimes you can ask yourself that every month: what sort of impact do I want to have? And at the end, how do I want people, or how do I want an organization to remember me, right? So think of, if you're signing up at the end of COP28, if you want to look back, you said you want to have X, Y, Z, were you able to achieve it? So ask yourself that, if you apply or not. So these are good questions to ask yourself. So with that, I'll just open to question. We'll take a couple from the chat already. So we'll distribute the question between myself and Hannah. So Hannah, first question, I'll give it to you. Is it possible to edit my application once I've submitted, or you would recommend submitting a new one?
I think that if you log on to your Google, there might be a way to edit it. So you would log on to your Google account. Otherwise, if you struggle to do that, we'll welcome you resubmitting. Where your name is against two of them, we'll take the latest one. So we'll take the one that you entered most recently.
Perfect. I'll take the next one. What would be the method of communication between the delivery team be? Which various software be used? So in the past, we've used basically Microsoft Teams like today, or Zoom meetings. And as well, we communicate frequently on WhatsApp. So these are probably things we'll be thinking about. And also as part, and you'll see as part of the application, there's a delegation management role, and one of the delegation management role will be to kind of think about that, right? What's the best way to communicate between delegates, between volunteers, between the delivery team?
Just to add to that, Veeshesh, on the software to hold organisational plans, this year we used Google, so Google Drive, and perhaps on that project management side, or if any of the delivery team has some suggestions, then we'd be willing to use a software that's suitable for everybody, noting an international team using things like Google, most people have used them. We are exploring using Slack as a project management tool this year, which would include some communication functionality as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Hannah, and thanks, George, for the question. Christina, question for you then, Hannah, for that. I'll leave that to you. If we are interested in the shorter term task force, would we have to complete the delivery team application, or will there be a separate application for that?
So we'll have a separate application for that. If you were interested in being part of the delivery team, but perhaps were unsuccessful, I can gladly say we have had nearly 100 applications so far for approximately 10 roles. So we won't be able to have everybody involved, but what we will do then is use people who had submitted to be an applicant to be part of the delivery team, who perhaps couldn't quite be on the delivery team but were a really good candidate, and we'll be asking them to apply for the task force, but we'll also do a further round of promotion, so it will go wider than just people who have already applied. So I'd encourage you to apply to the delivery team role if you know that that's what you want to commit to. If you think you can only commit to the shorter term task force, you're very welcome to drop the Nuclear for Climate email an email, and we'll keep you in mind. We'll add you to our list of contacts to reach out to later in the year.
Perfect. And I'll ask Mattia if you could type the Nuclear for Climate email in the chat for just for people to have it if they want to ask us any questions. I'll take that one from Afolabi. For the support team, is it possible to submit an application if you have not founded a climate NGO before or work in a climate NGO as a team head? Can we apply if we help position in other NGOs that promotes another SDGs? Yeah, short answer, yes, we are encouraging application from everywhere. And actually, one of the things that the Nuclear for Climate leadership team has discussed a lot towards the end of last COP and towards the start of this year is what sort of next step we need to take. And one of the big things we want to do is break out of the nuclear bubble, right? So we are encouraging collaboration with other NGOs, other organizations. So if we have people who already work or have worked in these sort of organization, this is what we want to feed in the team, because at the end, as we see, our message is together is better, clean energy for all. So it's a technological neutral approach, but if we have those people, we want them. So short answer is yes, Afolabi. Next question, I'll give that to you, Hannah, from Basim. My question here is about financials. Would individuals who make it to COP be expected to cover travel and accommodation fees?
This is a good question, and it's really important to consider this one. So the way that Nuclear for Climate operates is we seek funding to have our booth, to have our t-shirts, and to get the materials that we need to be at COP. However, for all of the 98 individuals who attended as volunteers, it's their personal responsibility to find cover for their travel and for their accommodation. So what is really good to do is to start engaging early. So if your organisation, your university could fund you, that's what many of us in the delivery team did, is we asked our organisations to give us a fund. Now, this in itself is a great development process to do, to write a business case to your organisation and to secure that funding to get you out to COP. And then you can also apply for grants that are available from your organisation, from your university, or in your country. So we encourage that throughout the year. We do plan, depending on how things go financially, we don't know. Every year we start with no money and no team, so we start from scratch every year. We hope to make a travel fund available for people to apply to. So as an example, last year we made this available to AYGN, so Africa YGN members. The reason being they were coming from non-nuclear countries. They didn't have organisations and grants that would allow them to go out to COP and advocate for nuclear, unfortunately. So we will do that on an application basis. Unfortunately, it will be a small amount of money and it wouldn't cover all volunteers or even all of the delivery team members. So the first port of call and part of that application will be, have you sought funding elsewhere? One of our volunteers last year ran a GoFundMe page to get out to COP, as well as seeking funding from other organisations. So where we get information, we will share that, but it's your personal responsibility to secure it. And Veeshesh, I'll read out the next question we've got from George. He said, what would you estimate time-wise would be needed on a weekly basis to carry out the delivery tasks?
Perfect, and that's probably the most commonly asked question from what we got. So in terms of time commitment, I would say at the start, the first 3-4 months leading to COPs, so from March probably to August, 3 to 5 hours at least for a lead role, and the support role maybe towards the 3 hours, and in the month leading to COP, probably expects around 5 hours. But I'm going to tell you that's going to be the best 5 hours you're going to spend. No boring meetings with us, only fun stuff. That one we can assure. But again, one thing we again, it's managing expectation, right? It's a volunteer role. I know we all have personal life. We all have work life with working hours. So this is kind of an extracurricular stuff. So, but it's important to let people know if you want to be part of the delivery team as a lead or as a support, there is time commitment. They are deliverable because it's a campaign we need to keep moving, right? We are doing great stuff there, so there's deliverable that we need to make, hence the time commitment. So thanks, George, for the question.
I think we can open up to any questions people would prefer to ask verbally than to type. I don't see any hands up at the moment. I'm quite comfortable to hang around a little bit longer if people want to have a chat, and propose perhaps we could stop recording there and just, yeah, we'll stay on, Veeshesh and I, and see if anybody wants to have a chat about the roles.
But and just before closing as well, again, it's really exciting to see all these 100 applications. As Hannah has said, it's interesting because at the end of the day, we want to have a very diverse team, not in terms of just gender, but also in terms of region. We got application from different South America, North America, Africa, Australia, Japan. So everyone brings their own experience, their own culture to the team, their own way of working. So that's another sort of diversity we are looking for the team, but also in terms of experience, everyone has different level of work experience. For example, some people are communicators, some people are researchers, some people are more from the technical side. So having a diverse team, that's where we want to at the end strive towards, because when, again, like speaking about when these head of states, when these policymakers come to us, you want to have a diverse team that can cover a lot of range of topic. And last thing, I know someone asked from the Eventbrite thing, do we give any training? Yes, we do give training to our volunteers. So once you are part of the delivery team or the support team, the great thing, you'll be trained on many things. For example, in terms of communications, in terms of how to advocate, we have formal training programs with some of our partners. For example, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is basically the UN branch for nuclear. They will come to us and help us answer questions, right? So what are we looking for in terms of, okay, when you go to conference, how do you improve on your networking skills? How do you prepare for a speech? How do you prepare for a panel? So this sort of training is what you'll get towards the end. And and that's something. Going back myself, it was I learned a lot of stuff from these training sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. There was also some Arabic language lessons that we put in place last year, and also cultural briefings. As we've got such an international group, we thought that that would be really important, and we'll find it important to do that again this year. But also, we did have kind of local support from Egyptians last year within the delivery team, and this year we've actually dedicated a host country coordinator as a lead, and at least one person in a support role to them as well. We've got a question about persons with disabilities. Would there be opportunity for volunteers to create events for them to promote diversity? So I want to just ask if this is for events at COP. In fact, I'll do, make that assumption, and if it's not that, then drop another question in. So COP itself, there are codes of conduct for COP and accessibility requirements at COP. So one thing that was really great was beyond just disability, but in general interpretation services. So for language interpretation, but also for sign language was also used. So when we have events, we should definitely look to ensure that we're being as inclusive as possible to people with different needs and different abilities and access requirements. Things like making sure we use closed captions, that we record things and share them after with captions in them, improve our ability to reach as wide as possible. And we should make we should make that a focus for the website. To use descriptions for our images and things like that as well. Veeshesh, have you anything to add to that one?
No, you pretty much covered it, but again, as you say, in terms of inclusion, etc., I want to include everyone. So yes, we will make special circumstances based on each one's situation, and we'll work with that person as well.
Yeah. And George has a question. I'll give this one to you, Veeshesh. Do you have a ballpark for an amount of money needed to pay for travel and accommodation?
Yes. Okay. Good question. Yeah. I see, Julieta. You're a pro already, so that's kind of the answer. Yeah. It depends on where you're from. So, for example, if you're in Asia, or so basically, what I can say, what the cost, what are the out of pocket money you need to pay. So your travel, so your flight. So depending on where you are, that might depend. Accommodation will be similar. So there's some things we did in the past, and again, we haven't discussed that yet, is where we get a flat for some of our delegates where we get to share the cost. And the third thing is the food expense and any entertainment fees there, right? So these are the three things, and it depends. And I can give you for myself, I was in Egypt for COP 27. Going from Canada, it's a long flight, so that was the most costly option. So it costed me around 2,500 Canadian dollars for the 2 weeks. So it depends on the region. And that's something you can find out if you go try to go on one of the flight websites, put the dates for COP, what's the flight, look for accommodation during that time. That will be like 85% of your cost. So that's how you can find out.
One other cost would be visa cost. That is usually relatively low, but the hotel accommodation or flat accommodation, that's something that last year many people booked one room but split the financial cost. So we booked lots and lots of twin rooms, and that's something we'll hope to do this year again. Not only did we do that with our own delegation, but we did reach out to other the nuclear delegates that would be going to COP, and spoke about, we have a spare bed in this room, and made sure that we kind of shared accommodation, but people paid for their part of that room where they could. So that can reduce the amount of money you're having to ask for via a grant or via funding from your organisation.
We got 13 more minutes. Let us know if you have more questions. But again, these are the great question to ask because even for ourselves, I'm sure Hannah, we've asked ourselves this question before putting the application. So that's your chance to ask these questions. Especially, I know the travel cost. The accommodation cost, it's a big expense, and that's why, as Hannah was saying, it's a great business case to put your organization through your young generation network or through any NGOs you are part of. If you can fund them, if you can fund you, because there's something for them as well, because the physical presence you'll have there, how you get to meet with those people, make a for example, be part of a panel. It's something that they can communicate as well to their members, etc. So this it's a very good case to make. So just a test there. Okay, by a show of hand, who's gonna put an application now? Just raise your hand through the chat. I wanna see now if we've convinced you enough.
1, 2, 3. Oh, it's ticking up.
Oh, that's
Brilliant.
good. That's good. That's good. Either we got people more interested or we made people run away. One or the other.
Some people have applied twice. Brilliant.
Oh my God. But again, we've dropped our email on the chat as well. Feel free to reach out to us again. And one other thing, if you think of, you've applied, but if you're part of a young generation network or an SDG or another NGO, feel free to spread that to your team as well. That's still got 2 weeks. 2 weeks is plenty of time for an application, right? So we're not looking for something fancy, but just for us to get to know yourself and who we'll work with in the past.
Fantastic. That's great, Hamza. Having looked at some videos on YouTube of the Expo City, wow, it looks very beautiful. So very excited to see it. Well, we look forward to all of your applications. Now we can't tell whether people are applying or asking questions, but we've got at least 8 or 9 have said they'll be submitting an application. Okay, I think we should wrap up there, Veeshesh.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks again for joining. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the questions. So we'll look forward to seeing your application. And thanks, Hannah and Mattia as well for being there. And Mattia especially doing the behind the scene work in terms of setting the meetings and making sure we have a good platform for you guys to speak. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.